sing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Hi, this is going to be a real surprise and fun interview for you to watch. We arrived in Washington toward the end of our 40 Days and 40 Nights video tour, and we were there to spend some time with our good friends Byron Buck and Vicki Glass. And they invited us to dinner on the Saturday night before the dedication of the Martin Luther King Monument in Washington. And they had the additional guest of Bob Zellner. We'd never met Bob, but boy did we fall in love with him. And he tells an amazing story about what it was like to be one of the 5 white people to show up and volunteer with Martin Luther King at the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement. It's a great story, and it starts out when he is discussing what his father did, he was a preacher, and his father went to Germany. And so the story starts out there, and I know you're going to be really impressed. So watch it. This is fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He went to Germany.
He went to Germany with Bob Jones.
Read his book.
My mother and daddy both went to Bob Jones College, University.
Yeah, in South Carolina.
And no, it was then in Florida. In let's see, what was it, Port St. Joe or something like that.
And your father's a minister.
Dad was a minister, and he was from Birmingham. And as a young person, he was a Klan organizer. And his daddy was in the Klan, and all of his brothers, and his sister was in the Klan too.
Is that right?
They
had women in the Klan?
My favorite in the Klan, the auxiliary, they weren't allowed in the main room. No. I mean, you don't think the Klan would hang out?
Hell no.
Women folk.
And my aunt Tad was a
Aunt Tag. Is that Southern or not?
Yeah. And she was, Mary Carolyn was her name, and she wore men's clothes. Mary Carolyn Zellner. And she wore men's clothes. And she was
she gay, for crying out loud?
She was gay. She was a lesbian. We didn't know what that was at that time. No. She was just our favorite aunt because she was bodacious and down to earth.
Bodacious, did you say?
She was bodacious. Yeah. She said she could outwork any man and whip most of them. Whip most of them. We believe it.
Europe, what happened?
Well, he went with Bob Jones, and Bob Jones married my mother and father, did the wedding ceremony, and I'm named after Bob Jones.
Oh my God.
And he was so disappointed.
Your name is Robert?
My name is John Robert, and so I was named after Bob Jones. And
now, where is his university now?
It's in Greenville, Florida. Greenville, South Carolina.
I thought it was in Virginia. Okay.
And I was in Tennessee, I think, at one time, to save the Jews by converting them to be Christians. So I said to Daddy, well, isn't that kind of like converting them at the point of the sword? He said, yeah, well, that's been done a lot. And so I said, did you convert any Jews? And he said, no, but they converted me. Little underground churches and stuff. In Poland, Germany, Estonia, Latvia, parts of the Soviet Union even, secretly. So.
Your father?
My dad, yeah. So he had to dodge the Gestapo, the KGB, Pilsudski's people in Poland. He was kind of underground. So he said, I have been in Russia for about 6 or 8 months in the middle of the winter. And the only English that I heard anybody speak was my interpreter, who spoke just enough to interpret the gospel as I was preaching it. And said we joined up with a group of gospel singers from the South, our little group, and they were making the same rounds to these little churches that we were. And he said they were all black. They were African Americans. He said, so here I am, a Klansman in Europe. I haven't heard anything from home. And we were talking about okra and cornbread and buttermilk, and we were singing the same songs, praying the same prayers. And he said, I thought I was having a nervous breakdown because I forgot they were black.
Oh,
And he
wow.
literally forgot that they
He said, one day I realized I had forgotten they were black. And so I tried to keep reminding myself, James, his name was James Abraham.
That's your dad.
This is important, that's my dad. He said, I had to remind myself that they were black and I'm white. He said, but it became so difficult, I decided while I was over here, I would forget about it, and when I went back to Birmingham, I'd be a good Klansman again. But he said, all the people in Europe just called us the Americans.
Yeah.
And they made no
Wow.
difference. They were just the Americans. It didn't make any difference to me. He said, so that ruined me as a Klansman.
Wow.
So that was his conversion.
So he came back.
Good for me. Yeah, and then he, over a period of years, he broke with his father, broke with the Klan, which was, he was a Klan organizer. You know, he had
And
all
your
the,
grandfather never spoke to him.
well,
Is that
my
right?
grandfather disowned him. His brothers never spoke to him again, or the one sister. In his whole life, he died without them ever speaking to him again.
Oh my God.
But he didn't die a Klansman.
But he didn't die a Klansman. He stopped being a Klansman, and
And
he
Bob,
started
did you
working
and-
with Joe Lowry, started working with Dr. King, and he joined the Southern Conference Educational
And
Fund.
so you and your father were of like minds toward the end of his life.
Yes, it was. I realized later on. You said, how did I do that? I didn't have the poison of getting racist teaching from a small child, because my father was already trying to be avoided the poison of imbuing racism with my mother's milk. So that as I grew up, I felt a little different from other people, and that was my education. Because when I felt a little different, I would say, why, I don't know why, I didn't realize what it was about. So when the first black student went to the University of Alabama, as early as 1955, I was still in high school,
Yeah.
in Mobile, Alabama.
In
And I'd
Mobile.
say, I think that's a good idea for her to go. And people say, oh, don't let anybody hear you say that. And I said, well, you heard me say it. They said, yeah, but I know you're crazy, but other people don't know, and they'll hurt you. So that's what really got my back up as a high school student. Why would anybody, a free white American, not 21 yet, but
Well, there you go. That was your problem.
yeah, and I said, why would anybody be afraid of someone else hurting them because of the way you think?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to think the way I want to, and I don't care who knows it, and let the devil take the hindmost. I'm never going to be fearful in that way.
Bob,
Yes.
you had a few other white colleagues or students
Sure.
that felt the same as you. Because I would,
In Montgomery, and I was lucky enough to meet Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, which changed my life, of course.
at what age?
About 19, 18, 19. And we were given an assignment to study the racial problem. And 5 of us said we were going to go talk to Dr. King and Rosa Parks.
It's a racial problem. We might as well talk to the guy who's.
to go right to the top. So
Trump is delicious.
our professor said, you can't do that. And we said, why? He said, because you'll be arrested. And we literally said, you mean you can be arrested doing research for a paper? And he said, absolutely. In Montgomery in 1959, you can be arrested for, if you go
Yeah, but you didn't
meet
believe
with
that.
them. I didn't believe it. So we asked Dr. King if we could go to his church and meet with some students and so forth. And he said, yeah, but you have to be prepared to be arrested. And we
That's what
said,
I told you.
we said, well, hey, that's what our professor said. And he said, that's why he's a professor. About those things.
And that didn't stop you.
No, that didn't stop us because we thought, well, just in the off chance that we would, something happen, he has to be careful about that.
So you drove down.
We
right?
went, and sure enough, the church was surrounded, And at the end of the meeting, Dr. King came over and said they've sent word that the 5 of you are going to be arrested. And I said, Dr.
I
King,
remember this story.
we need to escape. And he said, well, remember that little workshop we had about being ready to be arrested? We said, well, actually what we mean is we need to try to escape. So he said, okay, I'll tell you what we'll do.
This is Dr. King, right?
Dr. King said, first of all, if they arrest you, we'll be right down. He said, because Montgomery needs a good shaking up. We haven't done it in a while. So, he says, if they do arrest you, don't worry, we'll be right down. He said, but I'll go out the front, and it'll give you a chance at least you can run for it. If they come around the front, then Reverend Abernathy and Mrs. Parks can let you out the back door of the basement in that church. Because the front is way up on the street and the back is way down. So anyway, as we were about to get word that Dr. King was going out the front, Mrs. Parks placed her hand on my left elbow, I'll never forget. And she said, Bob, when you see something wrong, you're going to have to do something about it. You can't just study it forever. I don't know why she had figured that I might be the ringleader or something, but that she laid that charge on me.
And she touched you.
She touched me.
Oh my God.
And after that, I mean, how could you not?
How could
Rosa Parks. So then the word came, okay, Dr. King went out the front, they all ran around the front, and so Reverend Abernathy opened the door, and the funniest thing you've ever seen is 5 little white boys in Montgomery, Alabama, running all out through the black community, trying to get away from the white cops. Because we had suddenly become black. We were now outlaws.
And the community took you in, didn't they?
Just took us in, absolutely. Dr. King always took time for us, and Mrs. Parks kind of became our mentor.
Okay, so how closely did you know Martin Luther King?
Well, I knew him pretty intimately in the sense that he was the leader of the movement, and he had already moved from Montgomery, but he came back enough. And we didn't know that he and Reverend Abernathy placed a lot of emphasis on the few students that had come out to those things. And we had written a letter to Dr. King when they were charged, when he was charged with libel, and we took up a collection on campus. There were only 5 of us that became the Huntington 5, and we were all asked to leave school. We were asked to resign from school.
Did you graduate on time?
But no, let me tell you about the letter though.
Okay.
We sent a little letter with $53. We took up from the whole campus. Only 20-something people, I think, out of the whole campus contributed. And we sent it and we said, we want you to know that not everybody agrees with the establishment, and we want to contribute as little as we can. And a newspaper reporter talked to me later on and said that Dr. King had taken the letter in and out of his pocket and out of the envelope and unwrapped it, unfolded it. It was in 4 pieces, so he would put it on a surface, 1 piece here, 1 here, and 1 here, so that people could read the little letter that we had sent to him.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how we were, and then later on I was in jail with him in Albany. So we were as close as you could be.
Real close when you're in jail together, don't you?
Yeah.
Albany. I know Albany.
Albany, Georgia.
Thomasville and Valdosta and all that.
Oh yeah, down in the swamp.
Yeah,
Way
real
down in
thing.
there.
So then how did you become associated with SNCC?
Well, the newspaper reporter that told me about the letter wanted to do an article on the Huntington 5, because we were not only asked to leave school, the Klan burnt crosses around the dormitory. They had a huge march on the campus, and they burned a 38-foot cross in a vacant lot across from the campus. So this was big. This was big deal. We were called into the office of the Attorney General of the state of Alabama,
Wow.
McDonald Gowden, and he said, "You have fallen under the communist influence." And I said, "You mean there's communists in Alabama?"
You're a smart ass, Ricky.
In Alabama, there's communists? He said, "No, but they come through here." So the idea was we had inadvertently, unbeknownst to ourselves, we had fallen under this pernicious communist influence just because we were sociology students and trying to find out what was going on.
Well, Alabama has now the second most stringent laws against immigration.
Probably the most stringent. I mean,
Well, aside
Arizona?
from Arizona, yeah.
wow. You know that you can't have water. If you're an illegal immigrant in Alabama, and
Water?
you pay your water bill, that's a violation of the law. And if you don't pay the water bill, it's a violation of the law.
Well, we were there. They were just starting, I guess, the school, and they said that the week after that law went into effect, which is very recently, that all of the Mexican children disappeared from school.
Here, yes.
Just disappeared.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Alabama, the farmers and so forth were so upset. Alabama said, "We'll provide you with free prison labor."
Yeah, I saw that. I read that.
Free
I just
prison
read that.
labor. In other words, they will work on your farm for free.
As opposed to paying them $1.25 an hour.
Yeah, don't even have to pay them $1.25 an hour.
Wow. Wow.
New type of slavery.
Well, there's a thing called karma, and it has a way of coming around and biting you in the ass.
It will go around and it will come around.
Well,
Yeah,
I think they're already having a lot of problems.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, the court outlawed, said that some of it couldn't go into effect, and they said some of it could. What? So which parts are
Yeah.
okay and which parts are not okay?
Yeah.
Did you know the man that wrote the book Black Like Me?
I know that is the guy that made himself black.
Yep.
And no, I didn't know him, but that was in the middle 50s.
Yep.
Yes. It had a big influence on us.
Yeah. Big influence.
Yeah.
Wow. So you were there.
I was there, yeah. I graduated high school in '57 in Mobile, and I graduated college in '61. I was the only one of the 5 that did graduate on time because the rest of them withdrew from school.
They
And I said-
withdrew?
They withdrew, and I said, "Don't withdraw, because they have told you that you have to resign from school." And they didn't say they were expelled. And two of the 5 were given by the same president that called us hoodlums and not troublemakers and irresponsible and an embarrassment to the school. The same president put the stole around 2 of the 5 for the highest academic honors that the school could bestow, because the honors had been announced 3 or 4 days before we were asked to leave school. And so I just said, "Look, don't resign, stay." And they said, "Well, as long as you're here, it's going to be restricted to campus." And I said, "Well, that won't work, because my father, Reverend James Zellner, is coming this weekend, and we're going to an interracial conference at Highlander Folk School in Mount Eagle, Tennessee. So I will give you a report, President Cersei, when we get back. And if you want to, my father will come also and explain."
So your father just did a...
Oh, he became a great battler in the
Isn't that
movement.
something?
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing.
He would go to
It's
me. He
amazing
would
that
go with
you
me
are
to
what
court.
you are, but it's amazing that your father is awesome.
Oh, he was the. I'm writing now about that period, and I find myself writing more about my father, really,
Yeah.
because I really have to cover his story. He's a Klansman, who switched all the way over to be an activist.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, it's just phenomenal. I mean, it is phenomenal.
Well, there were so few people. I try to find Southerners now, and I think there were about as many Southerners that resisted as there were Germans. Probably more Germans were in the underground than Southerners were. Because
Okay.
the most Southerners
Going on.
were represented as on a very moderate level, like the Holly Carters and Jimmy Carters and people like that. But very few people really, ministers more than anybody else, really put their selves on the line.
And your father was
Took
one.
the heat, yeah. Well, Dad had the whole family trained military style because he said, Bob, you can be nonviolent, but I said, I was in the Klan too long to be nonviolent. And when they come to this house, my job and your brother Malcolm's job is to shoot as many of them as we can shoot and let them lie in the front yard. And if somebody comes back to get them, you have to shoot them too. Because what they'll do is they'll go and take all their people away and claim that they didn't do anything. But if you have several bodies there in the yard, then we'll know who it is.
So the question that I ask at this point in time is, where are the preachers in standing up for the rights of people nowadays? You know, Chuck grew up in a time that he was a young minister.
Yeah.
They were marching in the streets and burning their draft cards and, trying to stop the Vietnam War. What
are they doing now?
What are they doing now?
I really don't know. I have a theory, though. I have a theory that I'm working on as a, I studied sociology. I did 2 years of graduate work in sociology at Brandeis. I studied history. I worked on a PhD at Tulane in history. So
You got your PhD from Tulane.
no, I got my doctorate from St. Joseph's College in Long Island. My PhD is still my dissertation. I have done the dissertation, but I haven't
ABD.
defended the demonstration. What do you call it? I haven't done that.
ABD.
And it was they used my memoir. They let my memoir be my dissertation. So
Well, that's wonderful.
Did you bring the steaks?
Thanks, sir.
not only
What is the
mine, it
name of your
was
memoir?
published. It's called The Wrong Side of Murder Creek.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a
Myron
book.
has a
I've
book.
got it. Yeah.
You got the book?
Yeah.
Would you give me your name one more time?
Yes, my name is Bob Zellner. Zellner.
Thank you, Bob, for sharing those secrets with us.
great.
I didn't
Thank
know
you.
we were going to do an interview.
What-
Well, we didn't either.
so you know, what's the name of your book again?
The name of the book is The Wrong Side of Murder Creek. The Wrong Side of Murder Creek. And the subtitle is A White Southerner in the Freedom Movement.
Okay. And when was it published?
It was published in December a year ago.
Great. So it's current. Okay.
November, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the next day, we were at Byron and Vicky's house, and Bob returned after the dedication of the monument, where he was a dignitary, with Eric Falkenstein, who was a Broadway producer. And Eric is producing a play about Martin Luther King, and Bob is one of the resources and advisors to this play. And the two of them told us about what it was like to be at this very important event. I'm sure you're going to like it. We're glad we were there, and we know you will really get something out of this.
Oh,
Isn't it great?
look at this.
This is from a man who was hanging out with the president, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, were you with
Well, I
Friends?
happened to be between the Taylor, James Taylor,
Oh my.
and Carrie
Kennedy.
Carrie Kennedy. We met her at the last
Yeah,
trip.
and I gave Carrie Kennedy the seat next to me, which I was saving for him the whole time. And
They
Senator.
closed the gates, though.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You
Wofford.
didn't get
I
in?
know, I got into the other part, yeah.
So as
Well,
soon as the president
I
finished
think
speaking,
we're going to be off.
he had it
We're
right,
driving that to the
looked like
Yeah,
directly
right.
toward me.
I might buy
But-
a bottle of water off you if you can.
Well, actually,
That might be
it was
Yeah.
Carrie
Yeah.
and James Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
And
the president wasn't able to get exactly close because there was a barrier. And Taylor would not budge. He wouldn't go up there, and the president...
It was out of shyness. It was out of shyness.
Really?
Yeah, he's very shy. Yeah.
But anyway, so it gave me an opportunity to say hello to the president and
You
to
were right
Michelle.
there, did you shake his hand?
Of course I shook their hand.
Bob hasn't washed his hands since.
Plus I got all the photos. I got all the pictures in my phone.
Eric, are you from New York?
I'll send them to you,
All
and
right,
you
do
know
that.
what to
Yeah,
do with
send
them.
them to me. That's wonderful.
And Colin Powell was right there.
Oh my goodness.
And Steny Hoyer, of course.
Oh, Steny, yeah, sure.
Steny said
Our buddy.
as soon as I hoved into sight, Steny had the president of something next to him, and Steny said, Bob, come here.
Oh, you know
And-
Steny?
Yeah.
If I weren't married to Byron, he'd be my boyfriend.
Steny said, Dr. So-and-so, this is Bob Zellner, and he is a real hero of the civil rights movement.
Oh.
That's true.
The statue is growing on me a little bit.
Me too.
It's growing on me. I like the idea that it was done by a Chinese person because it means that he is kind of global,
I see.
which
Okay,
he's been
that's-
global for a long time. But it's doesn't, it's very easy to say, okay, that doesn't look like Dr. King, but he looks a little unapproachable.
Yeah.
He looks a little stern.
Yeah.
And he is 35 feet tall, so it's easy for it to look that way, I guess. But it's kind of growing on me, in a way. The jury is still out, but that's the way it's going to be. I don't think they're going to change it. I don't like the idea of his mouth being turned down, and they don't really have the sparkle of his personality. They have the more stern kind of look.
Yeah.
And there was some controversy about the sternness because
Yeah.
he was more approachable in the early visions that they had of him. And but monumentally, they said it didn't work to have something kind of intimate looking like that.
Interesting.
So they needed to make him more stern. And so they did it from a photograph, I think, that Clay Carson provided them there. Clay was there today, and he was getting photographs
What's
of
the, I
everything.
mean, why is it?
Why does it take so long?
Well, in this particular case with this play, we are so sensitive to being historically faithful. I mean, it's important to us to really leave the audiences with a sense of who these people were, in particular the people who were the major characters, Dr. King and his closest associates. I think that that hasn't been attempted really in a play that intends to span his entire civil rights life from 55 to 68. So I think that the amount of research is somewhere between immense and overwhelming. I mean, we just can never get enough from the primary documents and first-person oral histories to tremendous biographies. I mean, from Taylor Branch and David Garrow's Pulitzer Prize winners through a number of others. So, my team has, I've read most. My team together has read, sort of approaching hundreds of books, thousands of articles, tens of thousands of transcript pages of various kinds, and I think it's really important, not because a play can present a fraction of it, and it probably wouldn't be good for a play because it wouldn't be dramatic, but we synthesize it into a play so that we're getting a sense. You get a sense, for example, when you're really, one of the really important things about Dr. King is that he wasn't, he didn't come out of the blocks to try to be a leader and a hero. He was drafted, and he was great for the role. But another thing you learn is, especially towards the end of his life, he was much more radical, much more militant, much more interested in class issues and war, anti-war issues, and things like that. So I think it's really important to give the audience.
Are you the playwright or the play producer or both?
Well, I have been a producer mostly, but in this particular case, I was asked to write. Probably because I've been a researcher or a student, I would say, of Dr. King's for a long time in my studies and in my sometimes academically compelled research for school, and sometimes for for preparation for various projects.
You're mainly in an academic environment?
No, I'm sorry. Am I mainly?
Uh-huh.
I would
Are you
say-
professor?
No, no. I've been a producer of theater and sometimes dramaturgical. In other words, I've been consulted by some playwrights to give notes and things like that on their play. I've been a ghostwriter a little bit and a speechwriter for one of the presidential campaigns, not the most recent. I would say that I'm a mixed bag, a bit of a writer, but I've mostly been a producer on Broadway. So.
We spent the evening with Bob last night, and it's very clear that this is a big deal that happened today. This is a very big consciousness-raising deal.
Sure.
And so your insights and your comments would be interesting to have in the interview with Bob.
It's my pleasure. I was going to say that this play that's coming to Broadway is called Moments with Dr. King. Moments with Dr. King, because we want to make sure you can't capture it all in the 12-year period. I would say that...
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. You know once was lost, but now I believe that I will find. Said I was blind, but now I see. Oh yeah. Some one time, fellas. Ooh, 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 ooh. Said I was blind, but now I see. Oh yeah. Put down all my dirty ways.